In 4 articles of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany is blamed for starting the war. They lose land over to France. They lose all of their overseas possessions, and they will pay reparations for the damages that were done.
Germany struggled after the war because of the large amount of debt they developed. They printed so much money that the Deutschmark became worthless. Hitler began to rise in power in Germany through beer hall speeches and eventually rose to democratic power in Germany. He proceeded to break many rules in the treaty just to push the other world powers and see how much he could get away with. He took the Sudetenland back and rebuilt his army in the process.
Fascism began to grow in Italy, especially during the leadership of Mussolini. In 1932, he gave a speech where he said, "Fascism, the more it considers and observes the future and the development of humanity, believes neither in the possibility nor the utility of perpetual peace. Fascism is the doctrine best adapted to represent the tendencies and the aspirations of people like the people of Italy." Japan fully invaded China in 1937. War Minister General Sadao Araki proclaimed, "It is the holy mission of Japan to establish peace in the Orient. The League of Nations does not respect this mission."
As the mask of deception falls off the face of humanity, unveiling the grim reality of duality in which everyone is a casualty, no one will be exempt. Truth has many shades. It's not a matter of black and white, but gray.
Naval Commander Arthur McCollum instigated the attack in order to prevent a future attack from the Axis on America. He did so by sending a memo later called the McCollum Memo.
He sent the memo to high-ranking naval officers Walter Anderson and Dudley Knox in order to inform them why America needed to go to war.
In the first paragraph of the memo, he describes the current situation. The U.S. has Germany, Italy, and Japan against them. Russia lies between Japan and Europe, but remains neutral in the war. With the Axis power taking over much of Europe, England is the only one fighting against them in Europe. If Russia were to take the Axis side, the U.S. could be facing against almost the entire world.
In the second paragraph, McCollum describes how Germany and Italy have formed the alliance with Japan for the purpose of attacking America. Japan could stop British goods from traveling from Australia, India, and the Dutch East Indies. If these British goods were cut off, the Axis could easily take them down. Without the British, they would only have one more country left to attack, America.
The majority of the people in the U.S. were against entering the war. There was only one way to get involved and prevent a world domination. They would have to get Japan to attack the United States, and then we would have an excuse to enter the war. This was the McCollum Memo.
McCollum describes the advantages and the disadvantages to Japan and describes his reasons for choosing the 8-action plan. They don't have raw materials on the island, specifically oil, iron, and cotton. They can't get supplies from Europe. They depend on overseas trade routes. They can't increase their manufacture and supply of war materials without using American or European markets. Their major cities can be easily attacked with planes.
Plan A of McCollum's memo was to make an arrangement with Britain for the use of British bases in the Pacific, particularly Singapore. Action B was to make an arrangement with Holland for the use of base facilities and acquisition of supplies in the Dutch East Indies. Action C was to give all possible aid to Chinese government of Chiang Kai-shek. Action D was to send a division of long-range heavy cruisers to the Orient, Philippines, or Singapore. Action E was to send 2 divisions of submarines to the Orient. Action F was to keep the main strength of the U.S. fleet now in the Pacific, in the vicinity of the Hawaiian Islands. Action G insists that Dutch refuses to grant Japanese demands for undue economic concessions, particularly oil. Action H says to completely embargo all U.S. trade with Japan, in collaboration with similar embargo imposed by the British Empire.
Action A was achieved by the U.S. using the British naval base Rebul-Simpson Harbor in the South Pacific.
Actions B and G were done by FDR meeting with Dutch officials to restrict Japan's natural resources of Southeast Asia. Pictured is a picture of the Netherlands.
On September 25th, 1940, the government approved a $25 million loan to China's government, which was said in Breckinridge Long's war diary.
American warships were placed close to the waters of Japan. During secret White House meetings, Roosevelt personally took charge of Action D. He called the ships pop-up cruises. He said, "I want them to keep popping up here and there and keep the Japs guessing. I don't mind losing 1 or 2 cruises, but do not take a chance of losing 5 or 6.
Admiral Harold Stark sent a letter to Admiral James O. Richardson on November 12, 1940, that said to send 12 U.S. submarines to Manila.
From transcripts of the Oval Office on October 4th, 1940, we hear the presidents say, "This country is, ready to pull the trigger if the Japs do anything. I mean, we won't stand any nonsense. Public opinion won't in the country from the Japs if they do some fool thing. And the time may be coming when the Germans and the Japs will do some fool thing that would put us in. That's the only real danger of our getting in, is that their foot will slip." The U.S. made a total embargo on Japan on July 26, 1941, issued by the President. This document is a top-secret document that was a warning that Japan will soon attack within the next few days, and that they will probably attack somewhere in the Pacific. This warning is proof that the U.S. did know that there was going to be some sort of attack, and that it wasn't an absolute complete surprise.
December 7th, 1941, a day of infamy. Even as Japanese diplomats were conferring with Secretary of State Hull on peace measures, Nipponese planes were swooping down on Pearl Harbor. This pictorial record includes both U.S. films and pictures made by the enemy as they dropped their load of death on the naval base, on Wheeler Field, on civilian homes and schools. 100 Japanese planes and a number of midget submarines took part in the attack. In an hour and 5 minutes, the battleship Arizona was completely destroyed and 4 others severely damaged. 3 other battleships and 3 cruisers suffered lesser damage. Nearly 200 planes were destroyed. In that Sunday morning inferno, the Pacific Fleet appeared to be completely immobilized by the sneak attack. Nearly 3,000 casualties added to the catastrophe. Within hours, the United States declared war.
The Japanese Emperor declared war on Britain and the U.S., and then he attacked Pearl Harbor.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
As the U.S. took war against Japan, the citizens and the government decided to take action on the current Japanese citizens that were living inside the U.S. by putting them in camps and separating them from the rest of society. After the U.S. achieved what McCollum and FDR wanted to, we could now go into war because Japan attacked us and we had a legitimate excuse. They did not want us to think that it was them that caused Japan to attack us, but truly in the end, FDR went through with all of the 8 actions in McCollum's memo, which shows that he did read it and he did follow through. The government later went on to bomb Japan twice in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in order to fully end the war in 1945.
At 10:58 the morning of August 9th, the bomb was exploded above the city, and in the towering mushroom, Japan could read its doom. This was more than a routine bombing. It was the funeral pyre of an aggressor nation. The bomb had been purposely exploded high, so that the greatest part of its radioactive material was dissipated in the stratosphere.